right, friends. Full disclosure before we start, I'm recording this episode with a little bit of a cold, so if I sound a little raspy or congested, that's the reason why. But it's podcast day, and so, as they say, the show must go on. I hope you'll bear with me as we get through this one together. And so, I want to start today with a question. Do you ever open your closet and feel like it's full of clothes from different versions of your life? Or do you wonder how you can have so many clothes and yet nothing to wear? That realization hit me late last year before the closet redo. And if you haven't listened to the episode on the closet redo, go back and listen. It has all kinds of interesting little revelations that resulted from that one simple decision to clean out my closet. Anyway, I had that aha moment where I thought, why does it feel like I have so many clothes and yet nothing to wear? And I think a lot of women hit a point where they open the closet and they realize two things at the same time. They have plenty of clothes, and yet, somehow, nothing feels quite right anymore. So, after the closet reorganization, I started paying attention to what I was wearing because it was just easier to see my clothes. And I realized something interesting. The pieces I wore were the same handful of things over and over. And I asked myself, how can I take this and make my day-to-day simpler, yet more fun, and speak to who I am? Somehow, over a few weeks, I inadvertently started building a capsule wardrobe. Not fashion exactly, but what we actually wear in real life. And that, my friends, is what we are here to talk about today. I was going to brunch in a movie with my friend. I was picking out my outfit and I realized I have a go-to style. But the weather was interesting and so I needed layers. And I was planning on popcorn at the movies, so I wasn't feeling like I wearing, my normal go-to jeans. I turned to these cool drawstring joggers. And I started recently laying my clothes out on my white comforter. And since it was morning and it was really bright in my bedroom, I somehow noticed that the pants that I thought were black this whole time were actually navy. And so I ran and I pulled out a pair of black leggings to compare. And sure enough, they're navy. I immediately started trying to do a mental check. How many times have I worn these since discovering them? And I concluded, luckily, not too many, because this was one of the pieces that was buried behind the masses of clothing that I had in my closet before the closet redo. Now, this might sound small and silly, and in many ways it is, but it changed the way I was styling this outfit. I ended up coming up with this adorable, comfy ensemble, perfect for the day that I had in mind. And it actually also ended up opening up the capsule, which is somehow leaning into blue as an accent color quite organically. Another moment was my recent trip to Macy's. My immediate instinct was to put cute things I liked in the basket. I got in, grabbed my basket, and I only got to the first rack and had already added a dress I liked and 2 or 3 tops. And then I caught myself and said, you know what you need since you did your closet redo. It's not dresses for sure. It's tops, but not just any top, Virginia, intentional tops. Not the frilly ones sitting in my basket. And so I shifted my mindset, cleared out the basket, and I ended up having a very intentional shopping trip that adds to my current capsule without requiring more purchases to make an outfit or feeling like it belongs in someone else's closet. The shift in my mind turned the trip from a mindless buying stuff trip to an intentional, purposeful trip. And the bonus? No returns and no regrets. It turns out the tops I bought that day went perfectly with my newly discovered navy joggers. And then earlier this week, I was at Kohl's with a friend and she pointed out the Lauren Conrad brand. You know it. If you know it, it's the one with the flowery ruffle sleeves and lots of smocking. All the things that my eyes love. And you know what? We have to wear what looks best on our body type, not just what we like. And I discovered something quite funny. As much as I like the flowers and the ruffles on me, they're a hard no. The closet redo had bags full of those kind of tops. And if you're wondering, no, I didn't buy anything. Here's the thing. This process made me realize something. The outfits I feel best in are actually very simple. My favorite jeans, a black blazer, a simple top, or even a bodysuit. And suddenly you look polished and put together. Not dressed up, just put together. And it also reminded me that accessories matter so much more than we think. A flowery dress with those slides is cute, but your brown monogram designer bag may not work with it, even if it is a Louis Vuitton. You would actually look more put together if you took a moment to trade out your bag for one that works with the look, maybe a cute crossbody or a straw clutch. I really like doing this now, and it does take me a few extra minutes, but I have time now to pay attention to the details. And I remember being a busy young mom, discovering the idea of matching shoes and handbags and coordinating accessories and thinking, who has time for that? I'm lucky if I can get to work on time without spit up on my dress. I used to think to myself, you know what? One of these days, Virginia, one of these days, you're going to be able to do that. Well, now I make today one of those days. When I redid my closet, I realized something else too. My closet wasn't just clothes. It read like a timeline of my life. How many of you can relate to that? I had work clothes, and I'm retired now. Before that, I worked from home for about 7 or 8 years running my business, and I usually wore sweats or leggings. But for some reason, I always kept certain work pieces. Why? In case I suddenly decided to go back into the corporate world? Not likely. And then there were those trend pieces. I had this dress that still had the tag on it, and I just think it's so cute. It was black and kind of flouncy and had a little bit of lace on the top and long billowy sleeves, and it had kind of a short hemline. And you know, at this stage in life, we kind of all know what flatters our silhouette, and I've always been told I have good legs, so I like a nice dress that has a good hemline. But every time I put this dress on, I felt really silly in it, and then it hit me why. Remember those cold shoulder dresses, the ones with the holes right over the edge of your shoulders? Well, it was one of those. And that trend was years ago. And then there's the famous someday clothes. You know, someday I'll wear that. Now, other than ski gear or snow clothes, someday clothes are usually just clogging up your closet and holding you back from clearly seeing other options that you actually have. Like my black, actually navy pants. And then there are clothes that used to fit our lifestyle. aspirational pieces that may have been a thing 20 years ago, but by now, most of our lives have a pretty predictable structure. And when we hit a goal, we should reward ourselves with a current item that complements our capsule and our current lifestyle. At some point, you realize your closet is holding pieces from several different versions of you. And simplifying your closet might mean accepting that some of those versions are behind you. And that applies to every age and gender. How many of us are still keeping the Letterman jacket or the suit from prom? And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to fit into those aspirational jeans at the back of our closet again, but are you really going to wear them to the barbecue? With what? They're not even in style any longer. We all do it to some degree, but I learned that leaving old versions of me behind actually made more room for who I am today. And today, life looks just a little bit different. So what's the shift? Today, when I think of fashion or clothes, I'm looking through a different lens. I think there are 3 things that change how we view fashion. Comfort matters more, fit matters more, and quality matters more. I want to look put together, but not overdone. Unless, of course, overdone is the look I'm seeking for the day. Since the closet edit, I noticed a real rhythm in the clothes I feel best in. It's stuff like drapey solid tops, button-down blouses, structured layers, warm neutrals, good sneakers. I love a Jordan 1. Simple jewelry, nothing complicated, but everything works together. And there's a reason why simpler style starts to make sense to us. There's actually a psychological reason. You know me, once I get something in my head, I have to go down the rabbit hole. And so I did a little bit of research and I found that there really is a psychological reason a lot of women in their 50s and 60s start gravitating towards simpler wardrobes. You guys, it's not because we've given up on style. It's because by this stage of life, we usually know ourselves a lot better. So let's dive into that a little bit. In our 20s and 30s, we're experimenting with style. There's different jobs. Some of us become parents in those decades of life. There's different identities, different trends. But by midlife, something changes. We start to understand what actually works for us, not just in clothes, in life. But it's things like what colors we like, what silhouettes flatter our body, what fabrics we feel good in. I have a friend that refers to her least favorite fabrics as the evil twins Polly and Esther. And so instead of chasing trends, we start refining. And the second piece is decision fatigue, which we've talked about here before. By midlife, most of us, we're managing a lot of things. Families, homes, work, finances, aging parents. Maybe we're helping with our grandchildren. Our brains are already making thousands of decisions a day. So when we open the closet in the morning, we don't want to solve a puzzle. We just want something that works. And that's why capsule wardrobes feel so appealing. They remove friction. The third psychological piece is life is becoming more intentional. We start becoming more intentional about a lot of things. And we've talked about that here on the podcast. Friendships, time, money, energy. And so it stands to reason that clothes would naturally follow that same pattern. Instead of more options, we start wanting better options. And there's a difference. A capsule wardrobe isn't really about clothes, it's about clarity. And so once I started looking at my closet through that lens and made the connection to the science of it all, things became much clearer. And I knew I wanted to lean into this capsule wardrobe idea. So, what is a capsule wardrobe? Let's talk about it. It's actually very simple. It just means having a smaller collection of pieces that all work together instead of a closet full of random items. And when you do that, you end up with more outfit combinations, not fewer. And just like I did, you start buying things more intentionally because you already know how they will work with what you already own. It's genius. And so let's talk about why this matters. You guys, this isn't really about clothes, even though it's kind of about clothes. It's about simplifying life. When you have a capsule wardrobe, everything works together. Outfit planning becomes much simpler. It reduces decision fatigue. And we've talked about that before. And we all know that the fewer decisions we have to make in a day, the calmer the day. And thereby, life starts to feel. And I'm dressing for the life I live now. I love a nice sneaker and a great handbag as staple items. I always have a great wedge and a classic pump. And even though I'm not chasing trends anymore, I still want to look current. And I will not be caught dead in those grandma pants. Not this girl. Maybe style in midlife isn't about having more clothes. Maybe it's just about finally understanding what works best for you. So, what did I learn from all of this? Well, I learned to let go of things that no longer serve me. I learned to reevaluate what I want my outer shell to represent when I face the world. And if I had to define it, I would say I'm leaning toward what I'd call quiet, calm fashion. More solids, good fabrics, staple pieces that feel good to wear and are easy to maintain, because that matters too. When you are buying new pieces, take into account not just the price, but the price versus how much you may eventually spend on dry cleaning. And as a side note, that doesn't mean I don't still wear pretty flowery dresses to church. I just make sure that for me, they're not also ruffly. So, if you're thinking about a wardrobe reset, here are 5 simple staples that will make getting dressed easier. You ready? Here we go. The drapey top, or a crisp white button-up, is flattering, comfortable, and works with everything. Lean toward crisp white, ivory, or neutral. A great pair of pants or jeans. Something that fits well and makes you feel pulled together. I have a favorite in a dark wash and a light wash, and I have a pair that's kind of trendy too. And I have a solid, nice pair of black slacks. And then number 3 would be a structured layer. So for me, my black blazer is my go-to, but I also have a denim jacket that works with so many of my outfits. And for you, it might be something like your favorite cardigan or a lightweight coat. Number 4 is a comfortable, stylish shoe. Now, that could be sneakers. I love my Jordan 1s, loafers, or even a pair of boots. But make sure you can actually walk in these things, ladies. And one great bag. That's number 5, and it's an important one. Try to stick with something neutral because it works best with most outfits. Those designer bags without the branding, they're fine. But a nice elevated solid bag in black or tan is always going to give you a more polished look. And so I want to leave you today with 3 simple takeaways. Number 1, let go of clothes that belong to an old version of your life. Number 2, buy pieces that work with things you already own. Number 3, focus on fewer, better quality pieces. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if your closet feels overwhelming right now, maybe the answer is not to go out and buy more clothes. Maybe it's just stepping back and asking, what actually works for the life you live today? And maybe style isn't about having more clothes. Maybe the goal isn't a bigger closet. Maybe the goal is a calmer one. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, I will be here living on the verge. Bye.